The AGSI, which has met with the Garda Commissioner to discuss a number of issues. Thursday's meeting came as the Association of Garda Sergeants and Inspectors called for urgent reform of the Industrial Relations Framework. Declan Higgins is president of the association. He says the current mechanisms are not working and they are struggling to solve any major issues.
It touches on where ourselves and the GRA are returning to Europe regarding their ruling back in 2014 that Ireland was in breach of collective bargaining rights for Gardaí. Within the Garda Síochána, we have internal mechanisms to deal with collective grievances and problems that we're finding in the force. And these mechanisms, in our view, have broken down. We just cannot seem to progress any major issues.
AGSI President Declan Higgins there for more on this. I'm joined on the line by Brian Howard, who is Clare's AGSI rep and Ennis-based Detective Sergeant. Brian, thanks for joining us on Morning Focus.
You're welcome, Alan. Thanks for having me on again.
Can you just outline a little further for our listeners who may not be aware what has prompted this latest engagement with the Garda Commissioner?
Yeah, well, I suppose yesterday's meeting, Ellen, was very much an informal meeting first and foremost. It was an opportunity, I suppose, for the members of the National Executive to meet with the Garda Commissioner face to face, having not had that opportunity to meet him since last September when he came into office. But it was more or less, more than just identifying or speaking about particular issues. It was more or less around the whole mechanism structures of the IR process, which we believe had broken down. And I suppose if we bring you back to, as Declan alluded to there, the case that AGSI brought to the European courts, and the ruling was made back in 2013-14, where they ruled that Ireland were actually in breach of the collective bargaining rights within the Garda Síochána, and this was around pay and so on and so forth. Arising out of that, we would have got access to the WRC and to the Labour Court. And out of that was created mechanisms in relation to structures of meetings that would have taken place between staff associations and between Garda management, HR departments, so on and so forth, with a view to trying to resolve issues that we would have. And so we found that, these monthly meetings that were held with Garda management and the HR department, along with conciliation meetings that were chaired by the WRC, they were obviously totally breaking down. First and foremost, if the meetings had not been cancelled, we were arriving into meetings with no updates. We were being told that the issue was referred to some other office or possibly some other government department, and that we were absolutely making zero progress. And this was the breakdown that we were calling on the Commissioner yesterday to try and to get it back on track, get the mechanism structures working properly so we could kind of resolve the many issues that we have.
We heard there from your president, Declan Higgins, saying the current mechanisms are failing to resolve these major issues and that the industrial relations framework is no longer functioning effectively. Can you give listeners a sense of how that impacts, from a Clare perspective, how it impacts rank and file sergeants and inspectors in counties like Clare and on the ground in Clare? What isn't working?
Well, I suppose what isn't working, as I said, yes, there was more or less talking about the mechanisms themselves. But I would have spoken to you from conference 12 months ago, last March. And I suppose, our conference is on in 4 weeks' time again. An individual, if I was talking to you in 4 weeks' time, we could nearly cut and paste an interview that we did and post it out across the airwaves again in 4 weeks' time, because nothing has been progressed. All the issues that we have, have not been resolved. We've absolutely made zero progress, and that is the frustrating side of things. So, it's really going back to the drawing board really in relation to this, and for the Commissioner to absolutely draw a line under what has gone on so far and trying to adopt changes in relation to the whole industrial relations process, in relation to the mechanisms, in relation to structures, in relation to meetings, and to get into meetings and to have people there that can actually make decisions, because no decisions are being made. Whether that means bringing an assistant commissioner back into HR or whatever it does, because it has, as you say, having a ripple effect right through the ranks and affecting operational policing on the ground. Because if we can't resolve issues at a national level and the general issues that we have, it's going to have a ripple effect right down to operation levels and affect policing on the ground.
And Brian, in terms of no decisions being made, I'll just give an example maybe to be, that is illustrative of what you were saying just for the listeners. And, there are clearly many issues that you and your other members have. But, for example, the subsistence and travel scheme has reportedly been under discussion for over 6 years. Now, whilst I'm sure that is important amongst all the issues you have, maybe it's not near the top, but yet nothing has happened in over 6 years. I mean, is that a perfect example of the inertia that is frustrating you and other members?
100%. And I mean, that is not the other issue, the only issue. We have numerous issues that are currently below in the WRC and had similarly been there for 6 years, and we have been given empty promises in relation to resolutions around southern travel that we're nearly there, we're nearly crossing over the line. Now, to be fair to Justin Kelly yesterday, he was very optimistic that there would be some resolution in relation to southern travel. But we need some certainty. We have the EU presidency on our doorstep. We need some certainty in relation to the area around southern travel. And we have called on the Commissioner to try and resolve that issue. Now, he has took it away yesterday and undertaken to take immediate action in relation to that. But we will see how it goes. But we have been receiving empty promises after empty promises for the last 6 years. And as I said, we have numerous other issues currently in the WRC and have been there for 6 years without any progress, without any resolution.
How is morale amongst members because of these ongoing delays, when even the example of just given nothing has happened on that for such a long time? Is it hard for members to put all of this in the background to one side and get on with their jobs, or how much is it affecting them?
Well, I suppose there's obviously the great resilience within our Garda Commissioner, and members seem to put the shoulder to the wheel and get on with it. And I mean, we have, as I said, a big EU presidency coming up, probably the biggest policing operation that we've had in the history of Garda Commissioner. But members get on with it. Like, and certainly morale, and we speak about morale all the time, and I was speaking about with relevance in relation to various reports that were kind of drafted around the place. Listen, guards will not get on with it really, but there is an issue around morale and trying to boost lads, and they do get frustrated, as we do, in relation to trying to make progress in relation to certain issues, e.g. southern travel.
Yeah, I mean, some on the face of it, Brian, would look at this and say going back to Europe is an escalation, but I guess does that give a sense of how necessary the AGSI feels that step is, right, given the current situation?
And that is it, and that's going back to 2013, 2014, and where we got back into the WRC and access to the Labour Court in 2020. But now we are going back in again to Europe, because this is where the frustration is. We feel that the government have not acted on it. There were very court recommendations in relation to collective bargaining rights, in relation to Labour Court, in relation to the WRC. They have not been acted on at all. So we now are so frustrated that we need to bring it back to Europe, and that's the intention that we are and the process that we're in at the moment.
The AGSI has referred to frustration potentially manifesting in unstructured or grey forms of action. What does that mean?
I suppose we're talking about industrial disputes. We're talking about maybe pressing nuclear buttons, and nobody wants to do that, really. But
of course, I suppose, Brian, sorry to cut across you, Gardaí are restricted in terms of industrial action compared to other workers. Is the AGSI seeking the right to strike?
No, absolutely not. I mean, there's no appetite there for members to strike, at the end of the day. But I mean, there are other disruptions that could be considered. But nobody wants to go down that route, really. If the Commissioner can act on some of the promises and try and find some resolution, try and get, as we said, the IR process back on track, get us talking aside in around the table, get us resolving issues. And that will, have a ripple effect right down through the organisation, and will negate the necessity to take any of these actions that people like to talk about. But certainly we would not be in favour of any of that. Yeah, and there are nuclear buttons, so we would like to resolve it around the whole industrial relations process, to be honest.
I'm sure some of our listeners, perhaps many of them listening and hearing phrases like unstructured or grey forms of action will worry about what that could mean. I mean, how do you balance members' rights, Brian, with public safety and national security concerns?
Well, ultimately, the Garda Commissioner, they're protecting and serve the public. I mean, that's our ultimate goal, and that's what we're there for. So, and it's not about disrupting the public. and I suppose it's a responsibility on the Garda Commissioner and Senior Garda Management to try to resolve the issues, to avoid any of these negative impacts that they may have on the public. But obviously there is no appetite for any of the Gardaí to have any negative impact on the public. I mean, that is not what we're there for. We're there to protect, serve the public, provide the best service we can, and ultimately that's what we want to do.
You described the tone of yesterday's meeting with the Commissioner as informal. I suppose the first step along the road. It's the first opportunity you've really had to speak with him since he came in last September, following many years of Drew Harris and dealing with him in the role as Garda Commissioner. What sense did you get from the meeting? How do you feel it went? Was it constructive to any shape or form?
Well, I suppose the first thing I'd say about Commissioner Kelly is, I suppose, as opposed to his predecessor, he has come up through the organisation. He's come up through the ranks. He knows the issues. He's aware of the issues. He acknowledges the issues that we have. He has worked through the issues himself. So, he knows what we're talking about. And, and I suppose he shares our pain to some degree. But certainly yesterday you could feel that there was an appetite from the Commissioner to try and progress things, to try and find a resolution. The tone was very much constructive, and I would have seen it as a productive meeting. And, okay, he's taken away issues. We have a conference in 4 weeks' time. And so he has 4 weeks now to come back with some sort of positive kind of information for us. Because we need, ultimately, to deliver that to the delegates at the conference in 4 weeks' time. So we need a positive message. And it's within the Commissioner's remit to be able to provide a positive message for the delegates at conference in 4 weeks' time.
Yeah, and that seems like a fairly tight time frame for that annual delegate conference. In practical terms, Brian, what would meaningful progress look like before that could be brought to the conference? What do you hope Commissioner Kelly will bring back in terms of the first positive sign along the road to resolving many or all of these issues from your members' perspective?
Yeah, 4 weeks is a short timeline. I would agree with that. And I suppose we would discuss more short-term issues yesterday, more longer-term issues. But I mean, ultimately, the Commissioner has been there since last September. And so the honeymoon period is over now. His feet are well and truly under the desk. As I presume, he has been working on things in the background. It's not that we are just giving him information yesterday that's new to him. This is all he was part of Drew Harris's management team in his role as Assistant Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner. So these issues are not new to him. It's not that he's just heard these yesterday the first time. So we would hope that there's been a bit of work going on in the background and that he'll be able to deliver some sort of positive message. And whatever that may be, I mean, that he'll be able to pass on to the delegates in conference in 4 weeks' time.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens in 4 weeks' time. But for the moment, Brian, really appreciate you bringing us up to date with the issues and the tone and sense you got from that first and formal meeting with Commissioner Kelly. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Alan.